Well, hot damn! Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And welcome to our recap podcast for So You Want to Be an Imagineer, Season 17, Projects 3 and 4. That's right, it's the international edition of the game. So, Dragon, big thanks for filling in for Ace Astro as he's away on important So You Want to Be an Imagineer related business assignments.
Of course.
Of course, Dragon, you're not too familiar with the realms in which this channel got its roots. We've covered a few things here and there with you with Armchair Imagineering, but I don't know. What do you think of the idea of the competition in general, Dragon? Just to kind of like get your toes wet in it, like because we've tried to have you on for some of these.
I mean, look, if I'm being honest, it's inventive and I see the appeal, but it's a little too convoluted for my taste. It's just it's kind of outside my purview. I can't really get into it. It breeds some great creativity. I do see I do see some impressive pitches here. Basically, it's a way of pitching, attractions and theme park, theme park ideas and such. So it's interesting, just a little. A little convoluted in terms of.
So essentially, you can't really get into the game minutia of it all, but you like the creativity that comes out of it.
Exactly, and basically, I like to evaluate the pitches. That's about that's really all I can really kind of bring to it. I think that's really all I can really get out of it too. But again, sometimes I do think sometimes there's like a semantical thing where I think, well, we'll get into when we get into talking about this stuff. But yeah, on the whole, it's kind of my.
Well, my God, Dragon, you're in luck because that's exactly what I want you here to do, my friend. I want you to just give your honest and, your honest critiques and opinions as we go through these two projects and we go through all these different proposals. So overall, as a whole, Dragon, of course, we're going to start with Project 3, which is the modern Macabre Master. This was Guillermo del Toro. Now, this round we have a tier system, Dragon, and I won't bore you with the details of that. I get the feeling that might be one of the things that's kind of going over your head. Let me ask you this, Dragon. Out of all the tiers, create a remake of the Haunted Mansion in the style of Guillermo del Toro, create a remake of another Disney attraction besides the Haunted Mansion in the style of Guillermo del Toro. Create an attraction based on one of Guillermo del Toro's films, or create a non-IP attraction from the ground up. Dragon, everyone went this round with tier 4 to get the most bonus points, but which one would you have gone with? Like, not factoring in the bonus points, which one would you have done because you are a big Guillermo del Toro fan, at least from the Hellboy movies and The Shape of Water.
Hey, look, I'll be frank. Basically, most of the American films, I still got to go back to kind of the Del Toro's earlier work. But I have familiarized myself with it a little bit.
Have you seen? You've seen Pans?
Here's the thing. I've seen some of Pans. I keep meaning to.
You need to see Pans.
I know. Pans looks really interesting. It's one.
As good as The Shape of Water is, Dragon. I still think Pans is his masterpiece.
Well, the point is of his works like the Hellboy films, Shape of Water, and the Pacific Rim, but especially Hellboy and Shape of Water. I mean, I can say so many nice things, but don't get me started on Shape of Water. Oh my God.
I know.
But my point is, if it were me, I would have gone with tier 3 very easily. I would have. I was looking.
You would have done a Shape of Water attraction.
I would have, yes. At the very either I would have done tier 3. I would have done some. Maybe if I had done tier 4, I would have made it very, very influenced by Shape of Water. That's what I would. I could look. You get. Honestly, if you loved any of you do Hellboy, do Shape of Water, do Pacific Rim, I would have. It's something for like a tier 3. I would have made any of them work because Del Toro, it's an embarrassment of riches. It really is.
Of course, I've already been on a very terrible Pacific Rim ride that was at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom for a brief period of time. And Dragon, that was literally a 3D theater show with like spliced up clips from the movie. Like, it wasn't even any new footage. It was so bad. Anyways.
I mean, on the whole, I'll say this: I really would have liked to see kind of more of a more diverse selection. I mean, they're all tier 4, and that was I mean, no, that was fun. We still got like a number of really interesting kind of pitches, because very non-IP, just kind of from the ground up. They're very Del Toro inspired, which is still interesting and original, and I like that. It just kind of would have been nice to kind of see kind of a nice sampling, maybe, but you get what you get.
And also, Dragon, we were talking about this off air, but I just love in this picture, Del Toro's just like, yeah, that's right. My whole house is like the Haunted Mansion, but I'm not going to make the Haunted Mansion movie until I feel like it.
And you'll notice the character on the right, well, in Del Toro's left, our right, that's from Hellboy. That's the corpse that gets reanimated using the supernatural charm that Hellboy carries with him.
But ironically, Dragon, it also kind of resembles the hanging corpse in the attic from the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
All right.
Important is, of course, an excellent choice in like who you're going to style this after the wonderful director Guillermo del Toro. So again, embarrassment of riches, no matter what here. So
sure. Okay, so let's get into the pitches themselves. We start with Fire Mountain, who did Chase Against the Night Stealer. Now, Dragon, I tell you what, I tell you how we're going to kind of structure this conversation.
Right, how are we structuring this?
I'll start out like kind of giving what Ace and I thought of the project, and then you can kind of jump in with your thoughts on it.
All right.
And we're not going to go beat by beat through any of these folks. A, we don't have the time. B, I feel like Ace and I kind of adequately covered a lot of stuff on the written review, so we're just going to kind of keep this as conversational as we can, just for the sake of brevity and for the sake of efficiency. All right, so Dragon, let's start with Chase Against the Night Stealer. So the thing that really stood out to me here was the narrative quality to it, and also the fact that they had some a really good character involved here. The Tim character kind of reminded me of a good Guillermo del Toro comic relief character. And I specifically think of like like an Abe Sapien, or the scientist from Pacific Rim, or even Richard Jenkins from Shape of Water. Someone who's kind of a quirky personality, who's there to lighten the mood, but who does have a lot of heroic strength to them and does genuinely bring a lot to the plot at the same time. And so I guess for that point of view, Dragon, this was the big strength for this project for me, was the Tim character. The Tim character really came alive for me in the descriptions. Unfortunately, I thought that the Night Stealer concept, while interesting, I don't necessarily think that enough was done with it. And I feel like, especially in terms of having it be a Guillermo del Toro type vessel, having it limited down to just the one creature in the cave, I don't know. I feel like it wasn't del Toro enough. You know what I mean? It's like it did have some del Toro qualities to it, but I feel like you could have gone a way more above and beyond. You could have done either a more outlandish, otherworldly location. Like, the cave's a good location. It's still something that we've seen before, with attractions like Big Thunder Mountain or the Calico Mine Ride at Knott's Berry Farm, the various attractions in the underground setting, even Pirates of the Caribbean. So I don't know. I would have liked to see either something a little bit more otherworldly, or maybe a couple more creatures in it, because, of course, Guillermo del Toro, very much known for creature design. So what do you think of it, Dragon?
Well, let's see. So yeah, I'm with you there. I like the Tim and Samantha Winters. I like that, very kind of John Myers. I kind of read it more like John Myers. I really didn't get kind of a Richard Jenkins vibe, but I definitely got kind of a John Myers from Hellboy. I definitely saw what you
John Myers. Yeah,
like, I saw what you're talking about. Though it does feel like a Del Toro stamp with those characters. So I did pick up on that. I mean, here's the thing. So I like the simplicity of this one. I really do. I like the simplicity of it, and I feel that we could simplify this mechanically, because I feel it's maybe a little too ambitious mechanically, because it has this very particular ride system, which sounds impressive, but I just feel like it's such a good simple premise. I mean, okay, so we set up a frantic character at the top. It's like we got to rescue. It's his wife, right? Samantha's his wife.
Yeah.
Yes, I got to rescue my wife before the clock strikes midnight, and it's kind of kind of a chase in this Jeep, which I'm not necessarily sure I buy the Jeep. But the point is, it's kind of
Also, Jeep is kind of like an overused ride vehicle at this point, I think.
like honestly, I lost credibility points with two parts of it for me majorly. One is like the rushed exposition of the Jeep, and whether I buy it or not, that's one thing. It's another thing of like you're just throwing all this at me at the very last second. And the other thing is that as much as I love a Doug Jones cameo, like Doug Jones's role is like the police. Well, they serve no role. Why are we calling them?
Like, if anything, Doug Jones should have been the Night Stealer himself.
And speaking of which, that's my biggest issue with the whole thing, Tiki, is that there's no all these other it's so they're describing what exactly happens in the ride, like going around the cave and everything. That's cool, that's fine. But
It's funny that they gave more backstory to the human characters than they did description of the actual monster.
that's what I'm saying. It's not even like a backstory. I don't need a backstory on the things. We have enough with that.
Mm.
My problem is I need a physical description. And yeah, Tiki, I absolutely agree with you. Now you bring it up. Doug Jones should have played this, or at least.
And
Like,
no offense, but this is not going to cut it.
Yeah, I think it's an embarrassment.
Oh, come on, be nice. At least he did something. He did something to try and illustrate it, but I feel like the problem is he should have done more of a text description along with this. Like, this is kind of like illustrating like the physical form it would take, and then you need a text description at the same time. To kind of like really hit home exactly what the experience of seeing him in the ride would be like. That's what you're missing here.
No, all I know, I'm saying it's just the way he describes it's like I don't get the point of like again, like I'm looking for anything to really glean what this guy looks like here, even if you have like just in a rough like any other like pictures from history or anything of like what kind of like monstery features it has, and you should give me like a dude drawing, knowing that this is not going to work. Why would you attempt that? Either describe it and don't show me anything, or show me like glimpses like what it may like aesthetically. Like, give me like a bunch of different like images. Don't give me like a little like a half measures drawing like this.
Oh, here you go with your Breaking Bad references.
Well, no, I want to say other things, but I'm keeping it nice.
All right.
So yeah, in the end, it's simple and fun. It does remain true to the core of Del Toro, and you save the girl in the end. You scare the monster with like the thing with the flare was great. It's just again, I think I needed more to go on with the monster, and they go Del Toro's all about the monster, so we need that monster described better.
Yeah, I totally agree, Dragon.
All right.
All right, so let's get to my one of my good friends, Dragon. Believe it or not, I've actually known this guy longer than anyone else on the internet.
Really?
Yeah, me and Snoopy go way, way, way back, like probably a good 5 or 6 years before So You Want to Be an Imagineer was ever a thing.
Well, I guess that makes you Woodstock. All right.
I guess so. So the one thing I can tell you about Snoopy as an armchair Imagineer is that he very much leans into the classic style of it all, Dragon. He very much, everything he touches with an old school kind of sensibility to it. And that's what I respect about his work. And with that in mind, Dragon, Madness Mountain. Madness Mountain, what I love about this is it takes something that feels inherently very much Del Toro, and it works it into the standard tradition of a Disney mountain. And Madness Mountain is such a catchy title. It really does just kind of set the mood. And of course, I love the backstory on this, Dragon. The backstory is this is what I love about Snoopy. He really goes above and beyond with this. You can see this in his Action Park project as well, which we'll talk about very soon. Just the whole idea that he wanted to make this Lovecraft movie and he kept pitching it around and no one would take it up. But then The Shape of Water came out and finally it was going to be made, but then no, other things came up, like Paramount not having the money for it. And so finally he decided, James Cameron was like, hey, look, why not just make it as a theme park attraction? Like, people like Avatar better as a ride than they do as a movie. Which is true.
Basically, you're in favor of the fiction that's kind of created, but it is based in reality in the beginning of things and kind of the narrative.
I'm in love with this sort of meta narrative, Dragon. This is the kind of stuff I sort of live for with these kind of projects, honestly. Like, the more of this kind of stuff you can work in, the more legitimate your project feels, I think.
Okay.
Anyways, the actual ride is very, very interesting. Kind of having this Antarctica hellscape, this icy pyramid setup, sort of leaning into all the conspiracies and stuff. It's interesting that he kind of takes the Antarctica approach, where Antarctica is actually going to be I'm sorry, I don't mean to just assume that this is taking place on Antarctica, but it very much looks very Antarctica-esque.
Well, again, you look at Hellboy. Like in Hellboy, we open with kind of like the snowy mountain region of locations. That is very, again, you'll see this I believe he's pulling from actual concept art. If I could suspect some of it might be from Hellboy, but according to this, and I'll take it to be true because it looks like it fits what he's saying, that it's pulling from the concept art for the project that was never realized, the Mountains of Madness Lovecraft thing. So I think this actual concept art about the film that he was going to make, which most likely would have been kind of again, Del Toro doing yet another film kind of in that rocky kind of ice mountain kind of location.
So I think, Dragon, ironically, this is a very, very strong project. It really is. I feel like it captures Del Toro's sensibilities better than Fire Mountain did, except for, like I said, I think Fire Mountain kind of nailed the personality of a Del Toro character a little bit more, like a human lead character. But Snoopy definitely nailed the aesthetic of Del Toro and the feel of Del Toro. The one thing about this project, Dragon, is I feel like some of the detail on the world building is so elaborate that at times I almost feel like I'm reading a novel more than I'm reading a pitch for an Imagineering attraction. And then by that end, it gets a little difficult to actually feasibly picture how it would be pulled off in reality. But you know what? If my biggest problem is like, hey, this has too much detail in it, then I'd say that Snoopy did a damn good job. So what do you think, Greg? And I'm on the edge of my seat for this one for you.
So I had a different issue with the details. Like that, the one you brought up was not my problem with. That was fine. I love that element of it. I love the Lovecraftian nature, and of course, it felt very Del Toro. Because again, as I mentioned briefly with Hellboy, Del Toro is a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan. And when I heard that, I didn't know he intended on making this. The Mountains of Madness. And again, I'm not super familiar with H.P. Lovecraft and the Cthulhu stuff. I'm very just in passing. I've heard about it, and I've seen I've seen the name. I know it's a thing.
I hate to admit it, Dragon, but the most I know about it is from South Park.
I know it's very I've seen takes on Cthulhu things, but I've never looked into the actual original kind of genesis of Cthulhu and all that stuff. So the point is, I know Del Toro's a huge fan of it because again in Hellboy, of course, basically the image you have below us here is essentially the big threat that is what's going to destroy the world that we set up in the first Hellboy movie. Since it's the giant Cthulhu creature, and again, it's basically exactly that right there. It's basically the genesis of what the big threat in Hellboy is. And it's also kind of we have a smaller version of that giant one as the thing that Rasputin turns into in the third act of Hellboy. Turns into kind of a mini version of a giant Cthulhu. Anyway, my point is again the mythology and the deep dive into the Lovecraft nature feels very Del Toro. Felt in the locations, and again, assuming he's pulling from basically what the concept art's kind of laying out there. And again, it looks very kind of. I love using the city. I love utilizing the city. I love doing all that. But here's the thing I think makes me not believe in this project, just in part. Basically, not believe in the plausibility or the feasibility of it is. I think he's too graphic with the details. And if you're going to put this in a Disney park, he intends to put this in, I believe, in Disneyland Paris. Am I correct with that?
Yes.
You're going to run into a big problem there because we have again now. Here's the conflict, Tiki.
Disneyland Paris is the most mature out of all the Magic Kingdom parks, though.
You sure? Because I heard based on another project we're going to be going over here. I heard that Tokyo was.
I think that Tokyo Disney Sea might be the most mature Disney park.
Yeah.
But I'm talking in terms of castle parks, Dragon.
Oh. Okay.
In terms of Magic Kingdom castle style parks, I think Disneyland Paris is probably the most mature leaning.
Well, okay, that's fair. I didn't really pick up on that, but here's the thing. I mean, you have. I feel that Snoopy's conflict, at least for me, the way I read, is that the conflict is that Snoopy's being too faithful to Del Toro here. There is a line, and there's a line of inspiration than just doing Del Toro full blown. Where if you bring it to a Disney park, it's like we have corpses and autopsy scenes, and Del Toro loves autopsy scenes, which is very accurate to Del Toro. But like, we're doing autopsies on dogs. I mean,
yeah,
I'm just saying in a
yeah.
park where we have Goofy and Pluto, I don't know if that's really going to fly. You know? I mean,
I hear
I'm
you.
not.
I mean, but like I said, Dragon, these are positive flaws to have with a project. Being too faithful is a positive flaw. You know what I mean? That's the best way I can put it.
Sure, but by the same token, Tiki, again, if one of your isn't one of your criteria for this like plausibility, isn't like
Realism, yes,
realism.
yes.
I'm just saying you have to factor that in there, and I let me make it clear there. That's my only gripe with this. I really love everything that he's done here. I love like basically it's kind of this escape thing. You're going to a rendezvous. It's like, oh my god, we have to get out of here as fast as we can because things. Like, basically, I wish if he toned it down, I think this thing would work perfectly. If we allude to gruesome death instead of show like we see like torn up tents and carnage and maybe like some legs sticking out. Maybe that's as far as we go.
Mm-hmm.
And, okay, we got to run. I love the crumbling city set piece. That feels very Del Toro. It feels very kind of. It feels very like closed in spaces, very kind of gears and cogs, and very just kind of like. Again, we kind of go to an ancient city in the third act of Hellboy, kind of like a stone, kind of the big third act set piece, and that's kind of what I'm thinking of there, and kind of like the Golden Army ancient location, that sort of thing. So all of it, again, that's like it's very solid. Just again, that's my only gripe is that it feasibly, I don't know if he goes that graphic with it. That's like the only note I got on it. So,
all right.
But again, very inventive and pulling from a deleted thing Del Toro was going to do in his career, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. Okay, next up, this is going to go by really, really fast. Mickey Fan 5534 did essentially an elevator pitch for La Laboratory. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. And this is actually, Dragon, for an elevator pitch. I do like the idea of this. I think it's really creepy. Basically, you're going through a laboratory filled with steampunk cyborg creatures, and this is very much, of course, Del Toro. He loves his steampunk. He loves his cog creatures. We saw that with Hellboy: The Golden Army specifically. And Dragon, I gotta say, like, I wish there was more detail to this, but just for being a very quick, like, hey, do you like my idea? My response to "do you like my idea" is yes, I do like your idea. What do you think?
I'm sorry, T. I missed that because we have live commenters now. I just wanted to give them.
Oh, okay, okay.
Demona B, welcome. Also, Space Mountains in the chat.
Hey,
Space Mountain, he's calling me out here, little mister.
Oh,
no. If you don't, let me read this. If you don't think that concept art is, if you think that concept art is embarrassing, why don't you join the forum and draw your own? He's giving like a little wink, so I think it's he's taking it in the light, right? At least I'll take it that way. Yeah, Spaceman, come on! Even you have to admit it. Come on.
I'm trying to kind of like articulate this guy into into the minutia of like any effort is good effort in the realm of concept art. I feel like, and that's something that he needs to kind of like get through his head.
Describe I'm trying, your monsters Space. Next time, Space. Describe them.
Okay, well, keep in mind the Space didn't do the Night Stealer.
Oh.
Yeah, you're calling out the wrong guy here.
Oops. Different mountain. Sorry, I'm addressing Fire Mountain with that one. But again, I do appreciate sticking up for Fire Mountain like that. Now that occurs to me. Sorry, I have my depth here, folks. So.
Anyways. Okay, so La Laboratory. Dragon, basically all I have to say about this is I like the idea behind it. It very much does fit in the realm of Guillermo del Toro, and I also feel like it'd be a nice, confined, creepy, suspenseful dark ride. And so with that in mind, of course, I had to give like a 2 out of 10 for detail, of course. But honestly, everything else got at least a 7 out of 10 from me. Like creativity got like a good 8 out of 10. Realism got a 9 out of 10. So, this is an example of like, if you have a good idea, you can still score some points in this game, even if you don't come up with something really elaborate, and you're not gonna, you're not gonna win the project by any means, but you'll still get your name on the board.
Sure, sure, and I absolutely see your point there. Even if it's like minimal, you could still have a really good idea. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel with this one, again, you think this is hitting me where some of the great stuff. This hit me where I live. With kind of gadgetry and kind of steampunk nature of Del Toro stuff. And as you mentioned, Golden Army, big fan of that. I do love. I love this in concept. I just love this as kind of like almost like an elevator minute pitch. I guess. I mean, I love this. It's the hallmark of Del Toro and Labs, of course. Shape of Water. I'm thinking, like the great old fashioned, like kind of the kind of the '60s laboratory, kind of the exaggerated laboratories, and of course, just kind of you're playing with kind of the sci-fi element of Del Toro. That sounds all really great to me. Again, sounds like a great idea, but I just honestly the only thing that was kind of lacking here, and I feel again I didn't really need much on this. We'll make that clear. I didn't need much on this to really, because I was really in favor of this idea. I just wish I knew a little bit more of the how. Basically, I wanted more of a sell on kind of the how and the thrill of it all. Basically, like the how. Again, I don't need like a full elaborate ride pitch. I just need like, okay, like what kind of like ride is this going to be, or like how is this exactly going to work? Again, I don't need every little twist
The
and
way
turn.
I pictured it, like in my own mind, just based on the very limited descriptions, is almost kind of like alien encounter in the form of a ride.
Sure, sure,
Like
by all
kind of like
means.
that closed in, sort of like claustrophobic feel that alien encounter gives you.
That's the thing. Like either that, or if you could have just kind of sold me on kind of the like what exactly kind of the thrill of the ride is going to be. You know what I mean?
Uh,
But
yeah,
again, it's like I was open to it, and I just again, it sounds like a really good pitch. I just needs like a sentence or two more of just substance.
yeah. Ironically, Dragon, we do something on the board called the one sentence competition, which actually, that's the kind of gimmicky name. You can actually do up to a paragraph, but this would actually be a killer entry for that, to tell you the truth. Okay, moving right along. Du-du-du-du-du-du. Okay, so speaking of Space Mountain Dragon, this is Space Mountain's project, Ocular Ascent. Now, this, much like pretty much all of Space Mountain's projects, I got to admit, is fantastic. Dragon, I love that this kind of calls to mind Guillermo del Toro's like real life passions and stuff that he hasn't really gotten to invest himself into in the film world all that much. I would say the closest to the Jack the Ripper culture that he's gotten is that stupid Crimson Peak movie that he did, which just really was kind of over underwhelming.
Well, remember, his heart really wasn't. There were a few projects that Del Toro did because he was really working on putting all of his energy in The Shape of Water, and a few projects just kind of like he basically he started projects and he just kind of got like bored halfway through.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Ocular Ascent. What I like about this is it very much does kind of capture the world building that both Del Toro and Disney parks are known for. You know what I mean? It's very much a marriage of those two things, and that's great. That's a good way to kind of do it. Of course, with this, it's all about kind of like the alternate universe of it all, kind of like the reality hopping and the dimensions and all that, but done in very much a sense of kind of the Victorian London of it all. So Dragon, in a way, it's kind of it almost reminded me of Gotham by Gaslight, of course, with the Jack the Ripper stuff, of course, but also in kind of like the steampunk elements being added to Victorian London and all that. I love the descriptions. I love how otherworldly the alternate realm is, and kind of like the vast array of towers. It feels like something out of a dream or something like that. Of course, I love when you first get in and you see all these like octopus Cthulhu creatures, but it's kind of like the haunted mansion, like they're playing piano and there's something like really otherworldly and off about it, but kind of comedic at the same time. That's great. Like this guy in particular, of course, that would
Yeah,
make
this
that would make for a hell of an animatronic.
yeah this kind of got you to the kind of closest to the kind of Del Toro haunted mansion, I guess.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Of course, we get the Jack the Ripper finale, which is really cool. I like the fact that we have the alternate endings. I love the scene breakdown here. I feel like this is a very you want to talk about good concept art, Dragon. This is minimal, but it gets the job done so well, and it shows you exactly how the attraction's going to work. It shows you exactly the spacing of the attractions. So overall, Dragon, I believe when you factor in bonus points and everything here, I believe Space Mountain got like a 45 out of 40 or something like that. Like he got over the amount of points you could get factoring in the bonus points. So what do you think, Dragon? Are you as because I think overall I feel like maybe other projects did certain elements better than Space did. Like character wise, I feel like maybe Fire Mountains was a bit better. World building wise, I feel like Snoopy might have had a little bit more. But I feel like Space Mountain kind of combined everything. He combined the character, he combined the world building. I feel like his ride was the most realistic and the most feasible and really fit into the Disney aesthetic much more than, a project like Snoopy's did. So, Dragon, I think that Spaces is definitely the cream of the crop.
Well, here's the thing. I love I do like kind of this macabre, the kind of the dimensional, the macabre dimensional glasses. They do remind me of there was this gag in Hellboy 2 where Abe Sapien, he puts on these glasses which are kind of like they're antiques, and basically using these glasses like a bifocal type thing, and you can see everyone's like true kind of like their form beyond like whatever they're hiding behind. Like the little old lady turns into the goblin, and the Hellboy, when you put the thing on, you see the crown, the horns, like you see their true forms through these glasses. So it kind of reminded me a little bit of that, which I really liked. But I mean, on the whole, I had it's really ambitious, and I really love that. I think you're right. That is kind of a combination of everything to an extent. That was really cool. Like I think ideas like the rain idea, I thought was probably one of my favorite little details. I love this green rain. It's really trippy, and again, feels very much kind of a Del Toro haunted mansion, which was definitely helping. The Victorian setting definitely helps. I think he's walking a line with Jack the Ripper, and honestly, it builds to this with me, Jack the Ripper. I feel, and I'm assuming the way the ride mechanics work is that basically it's like the ride will like take you. Basically, it's a fork in the road, and the pre-programmed to the ride will take you one way, and they'll take like the next car like a different way or something like that, right? Like a random.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I mean, I think he's going for choice though, and if he's going for choice, I got to tell you, how wouldn't it be interesting if there was like almost like a button or something you could push that you could elect like which path to take almost. I mean, that'd be kind of neat. Again, probably impractical, so I'm not. I
mean, Disney did do that with Horizons, Dragon.
Oh yeah. Huh. All right. Well, regardless, I feel like one of the two endings I think was a little too ambitious. I feel the whole like this. I like both stories end. The whole like you're essentially both, they devolve to the same place where you get out of there and you seal up the dimension, right?
Yeah.
You get out there and you seal up the dimension, but this whole like who is the real Jack the Ripper thing. I mean, the ultimate reveal, I guess, is,
to tell you the truth, I almost feel like all the cool like alternate reality and Victorian London world building and steampunk and all of that. I hate to say this, but I almost feel like you don't even need Jack the Ripper.
That's the thing. I kind of agree with that. I mean, that's kind of the realization I kind of had during the thing, is that this is all so good, and then we're back to, oh yeah, the Jack the Ripper plot, which we're doing because we're in Victorian London, so we have to do Jack the Ripper. I mean, it kind of feels that way. Where again, we don't really. Again, I think Space maybe had a little more faith in his concept than kind of his foot in the door pitch of the concept. I think he would have been. I think he might have been better. But it was still great though, but again, the issue I have is this whole like kind of shell game of like, do we trust her, do we not? The whole like who is basically the I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my words here.
I almost feel like that kind of that's kind of like an attempt to make a more fleshed out version of Constance Hatchaway from Haunted Mansion. Again, more Haunted Mansion connections here.
I mean, I like what he's trying to say at the end with, I believe, one of the paths, where basically it's like the longer you stay in that dimension, like it'll affect you. And then, of course, we have this great realization by the husband who basically he saves us because he realizes what it's done to the woman that he loves. Like that feels like a Del Toro romance to me. I think that's great.
Oh yeah.
And I love that, but again, I just feel all of that's a little convoluted in getting there. And regardless, it's like we can just accept that okay, you're in this dimension, you become evil, therefore your loved one that you went all this great distance for is gone forever, and you making that realization. Both of those are compelling stories, but again, we're attaching Jack the Ripper all this and saying, so are we? It makes you think too hard. You know what I mean? It's like, wait a minute, is Jack the Ripper like? So was it like an interdimensional thing where the real Jack the Ripper is affected by kind of this good man who was like kind of tethered to him, or like I don't know, it's a little too convoluted for my taste.
Yeah, but overall, I feel like I said, I feel like all the elements are kind of like in place there. I agree that the plot is a little too convoluted, but I feel like pacing wise and everything else, it really does it really is kind of the most tangible of the presentations. Like I can close my eyes and really picture most of this stuff actually taking place.
I think this one has the best. This is the best kind of pitch and layout out of all of them.
Uh,
I'd agree. I think short
that's
of
what I'm
that,
saying. It
maybe
has
it
a
goes.
really, really good use of space.
I mean, this then maybe we might go like Snoopy following that, and I don't know, like because again, I think Snoopy had all of his ducks in a row, just needs to tone it down a little. So it's like maybe
Right.
when it really paints the full picture and kind of sells you and everything. It's like yeah, but again, just the ending's a little bumpy for my taste, but everything else is just kind of it's great.
Okay, cool, cool.
Right.
All right, so then we move on to the next prompt, which is it's not such a small world after all. So, Dragon, this was to do either an expansion to an existing park or to create a new park for one of these seven tiers North America, Europe, Asia, South America, Australia, Africa, and Antarctica. We got a really good lineup here, Dragon. We got Asia, we got North America, we got Europe, we got Africa, and we got Antarctica. So five of the seven tiers were used up. This is kind of like the opposite of Guillermo del Toro. I was happy about that. Of course, the two we didn't see were South America and Australia. Dragon, I'm going to ask you again, if you were participating in this, like what would be your go-to here?
All right, let me see. I didn't really think about that, but hmm. Well, okay. Okay. Let me say this. So I think the one I probably would have gone for would have been. I think I would have gone. I think I might have gone South America. I might have. But I think the one I would have, if I were challenged to do Antarctica, I think I could have made. I think I could have pulled something together, maybe.
Better than a park for penguins?
I think so. Yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
So,
All
so my,
right.
but let me address something too, because I mean, Spaceman kind of pointed this out earlier. I want to be fully clear, folks. Yeah, look, I fully admit I'm an amateur, and I probably couldn't do this to the effect that all these guys have. So yeah, it's just coming from an amateur giving feedback here. All right, so don't take anything don't take any criticisms too harshly from me. Okay. I just want to make that clear. Again, I did look. That's the thing. I'm not doing this for a number of reasons, but yeah, I'm not in that competition for a number of reasons, and one of them is again, you leave it to the professionals, essentially. All right, so don't.
Right, right.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so playground for penguins.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dragon, I like it. I think it's very outside the box. I thought it was clever. Like, you know, I think the one big problem with it is why would Cedar Point actually invest the money into this? Like, except for, maybe some good publicity. But you know what? If it's a publicity stunt, it's a fun publicity stunt, all right? Like I really do kind of dig the I believe me, Dragon, I know you. I think that you could probably come up with something more elaborate for this than for Antarctica, maybe something that humans could actually inhabit. But I don't know, for what it is, it's a clever kind of loophole, I think. And I really like that they really did take the basic elements and fundamentals of a theme park and strip them down for penguins, like because you have the big e-ticket, which would be the fun slide. You have the dining experience, which would be the fresh fish pond. You have the ice racers, you have the sculptures for I don't know. Um, I like it though. I really do. I think it's adorable in some ways. Like I said, there's definitely a feasibility factor here, but by the same token, I don't necessarily. I think the feasibility factor kind of comes in from like, why would people feasibly do this? Not necessarily could it be done? Because I think it could be done, Dragon. I really think it could be done. I just think why is the question.
I'm gonna
Easy,
try.
man. Easy.
I'm gonna try to be diplomatic here. I'm gonna try to just kind of curb my response on this one. It's so just correct me if I'm wrong. So again, this is literally a park for penguins, right?
Yep.
Just want to make sure I didn't read that wrong here. Like, are we able to watch this, or is this just for the penguins? Is it all that's my like? Are you able to
You
observe
know,
any of this?
I assume that there'd be like at least like webcam set up that you could watch it online.
Like for money? Like, I mean, I don't know, I don't understand how they're really getting a return on any of this.
Well, yeah, like I said, that's probably the like I like the fact that they did something at all. The problem is there's really no factor here to actually explain why you're investing the money into it.
All right.
Like I said, Dragon, beyond just it being a political or not a political, just a publicity stunt, just a really, really crazy publicity stunt.
All right. Okay. Let me say something nice.
Okay.
The slide sounds cool.
It does. It does. It very much reminds me of Mario 64.
Sure. Uh, it's. Sorry, I'm just trying to word my thing correctly here. I really don't. Let me put for me. I really, when I was reading through this, I really didn't get the sell here. I mean, basically, again, you're saying it's okay, an uninhabitable location, yet penguins, right? It's uninhabitable to humans, and so okay, if it's uninhabitable to humans, let's just do penguins. They can inhabit it, right? I mean, we can't just make things inhabitable for for humans. I guess we can't just do that. I just feel again, this is the best way I can put it here. I just feel we have all the wrong details on this one. You know, I just
All
I,
right.
I just feel we have all the wrong details, and I think it's all I can say before I borderline just kind of go on to a rant on this one because the rants I could make I won't. So let's just say this one really didn't grab me. Let's just
Well, Fire Mountain, I liked it. I thought it was clever. All right, moving on. Moving on.
Oswald Cobblepot approves, me not so much.
Okay. Okay, so Universal Studios Johannesburg, Dragon. First of all, the research on this was just absolutely impeccable. Just the amount of time that Space put into just convincing us why Johannesburg. Like at the end of the day, after you read this, it's like, well, of course the next Universal park has to be Johannesburg. Why wouldn't it be? And overall, Dragon, what I love about this park is that it's a great kind of mix of, it's got some islands of adventure in it. It's got an interesting use of IPs. It's very much kind of like that jungle aesthetic. Like we've got 3 jungle-based areas with Madagascar, Donkey Kong Country, and the Lost Jungle. And then, of course, we have Jurassic Park, which is also kind of tropical as well. And then the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is a forest. So there is really a running naturalistic theme. It's almost kind of like the animal kingdom of Universal theme parks. And with that in mind, I really feel like this. He goes out of his way to describe the world and describe all the detail in it. This is just a very, very fully fleshed out park. Uh, and another thing I like is that there's no real clones. The only clone that we get is in the Harry Potter world. But I like that with Donkey Kong Country, he doesn't just clone the ride that's coming to Universal, which is the minecart ride. He creates an entirely new ride around that. Speaking of which, Space is using Planet Coaster for these screenshots, and I think the screenshots are this absolutely incredible. And much like that, I feel like he should get props for Jurassic Park not just having a, just a recreation of the river adventure, but instead something completely original, something that, something that uses the Jeeps instead of the boats. And then, of course, I love the Mr. DNA Carousel of Progress style show. That was great. And generally speaking, all these screenshots are wonderful with the with Jungle Coaster. This one screenshot, very much in the style of a Rocky Mountain construction coaster. And the Forbidden Forest was a good way to go with Harry Potter. And that's about it, Dragon. Very comprehensive project, very packed with detail. What do you think?
Yeah, this I sorry, I mean, I really did like that. I really did like this one. This is a really inventive one. I the Jurassic Park stuff was by all means my favorite because again I love just the idea of like you do the sky bucket thing with the helicopter. Basically replicates the experience of the first Jurassic Park film, which I think is great. Little typo. I think he said infamous instead of famous, which if it's infamous, I think it's a misnomer. If he's like calling the theme music infamous.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was very the helicopter thing was impressive. Of course, Mr. DNA, I'm absolutely with you there because one of my favorite things in the Jurassic Park thing too. It's like, oh my god, like that. I wanted to keep going on the Mr. DNA little Mr. DNA lecture. I thought it was really clever how I thought it was really good sampling overall. We had like Donkey Kong Country, we had Madagascar, Isla Nubar, and Forbidden Forest. And yeah, well, personally, I'm not invested in Forbidden Forest, but I do see the logistical. Like, yeah, it's a good call. So I do think we're basically in bringing Universal somewhere else. I think there was an excellent job there, and we themed it really well. I feel the Lost Jungle. I feel has to be your big original draw, and I feel it was. It needed something a little more eye-catching, but it works, but it could work better. It's kind of the sense I get.
I don't know. I think a Rocky Mountain construction coaster, highly themed in a universal way, is a big draw.
I'm saying, Tiki, by all means, that could be the case. I'm just saying something just didn't quite. I don't know. I wish you could have sold me a little bit more on that. I mean, again, it works by all means. I'm saying, yeah, it works. It's just I feel like he's not putting spin on it.
I feel you.
That's all. I mean, again, that's really the.
You like all the concept art though, all the Planet Coaster art.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it works. Works wonders. Yeah.
Cool.
Also, I love the settings menu idea with the Donkey Kong Country. You go to like one of the restaurants that has like the settings.
yeah, nice.
That was great. But yeah, I mean, this was a really well again. It's just very well conceived. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean,
okay. All right, Dragon. Now we move on to your favorite project. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, maybe you should take the lead on this one.
Yeah. So, folks, Dragon is not a Harry Potter fan. I don't know why, because Harry Potter is a beloved cultural touchstone, but he's just not into it. So I'll just kind of quickly go through this. This is, of course, Basket Buddy Dragon. Basket Buddy is one of the most iconic players of our game, period. He's the only person to have won the game twice. He's made the finals more than any other player in history. He has a very distinct art style to him. So Basket Buddy is not someone you want to trifle with. Basket Buddy is a very serious contender anytime that he shows up. And so with that in mind, his main thing is detail. His main thing really is detail. Now, Dragon, the thing that I wanted you to focus on here was the ride system itself. And by that extent, I think it's really clever. I think kind of combining like a Journey to the Center of the Earth style ride system with the Tower of Terror drop tower, really inspired choice. I also love the fact that this giant tower is going to be the new weenie of the park in the middle of the bay, because that's the thing, Dragon, especially with Universal Florida, which you've been to, and Universal Florida has that massive bay in the middle of the park that I feel is just kind of like cumbersome in design. It's like, guys, what are you doing here? Why do we really need this? Like, you could put a huge attraction in this body of water and it just fill up. Like, you could probably fit a whole land in this body of water, and it's just kind of, it's not only taking up space, but it's making it inconvenient to walk around the park. And so with that in mind, Dragon, I really do like the fact that they actually like use a random Universal Studios body of water for this. And as far as the queue and the attraction itself, I do think it's very, very creative. I'm not expecting you to have any input on it.
I mean, I do have like one bit of input.
Okay. Well, just let me get through my
Sure.
thing really quick. Like I said, I think the ride system itself is probably the best thing about it. The fact that it kind of combines a dark ride with Tower of Terror, but overall with the actual effects and everything, the one problem I have with it is that Forbidden Journey already contains such an effective Dementor scene that I feel like this kind of relies a little bit too heavily on Dementors. But other than that, I think it's a very good project. I think the detail is really on point. The detail was something that I very much gave top marks to. And yeah, I liked it. So, Dragon, what do you think of it as someone who's not a Potter person?
Well, again, not having any familiarity with the Harry Potter franchise. Again, aside from going on the main tier ride once, the
Forbidden Journey.
yes, Forbidden Journey. I've been going on Forbidden Journey once after a very long wait in line. That's about my experience with Harry Potter. I do like the idea of exploring the prison and basically a prison escape. And of course, based on my familiarity with Batman, especially the Arkham games, I can definitely weigh in on that regard of it as that as an idea. And that's a very to me that's a winning idea. It sounds, and I gotta say, out of all of these, it sounds probably like the most plausible, especially with that franchise. That you do something with the Azkaban prison.
Hmm.
That makes sense. All right.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the Realm of Monsters, which is a replacement for Toon Lagoon,
This is
which
probably
was
my.
my favorite land in Islands of Adventure, Dragon. So not a lot here. We have Frankenstein's Laboratory, which is replacing the ship, the Olive. We have a Creature from the Black Lagoon ride, which is replacing Popeye. Which, as much as I really want to ride that Popeye ride, it was actually under refurbishment when I was at Islands of Adventure. I gotta say, the idea of a Creature from the Black Lagoon water ride is great. And then, of course, the Legend of Dracula, which is a very ambitious sounding dark ride style, like combining the Haunted Mansion and Splash Mountain in some ways with a really kind of gothic atmosphere. I love that idea. And I also love the idea that with this, if you make this Universal Monster Island, then Skull Island Reign of Kong, because Dragon, if you don't know, Reign of Kong is kind of like right in between Toon Lagoon and Jurassic Park. And it's technically in Jurassic Park, but it's kind of this awkward transition where, you have the Dudley Do-Right, you have the big, colorful Dudley Do-Right, mountain thing. And then suddenly you have the big, gates of King Kong, It's not a very good transition. So I feel like this would actually make a perfect transition for from going from the monsters into King Kong into Jurassic Park. That's just so smooth. But other than that, though, Dragon, I gotta say my main issue with it is I like Toon Lagoon so much, and I don't want to see it go. But if it does have to go, then hey, it's a decent replacement.
Hmm. So this is probably my favorite of all the ones.
Really?
This one, I love this. Of course, it's hit me where I live too, with the Orlando Islands of Adventure. It's kind of most familiarity with this land, but even taking that out of the equation, of course, fan of the Universal era monsters. And I remember even when I was on the Universal side of things, like I know this is an Islands of Adventure. That's my point. Is that on the Universal side of things, they really underutilize their monsters. They
They
have like
really
this.
do, yeah.
They have like this one monster
Even during
cafe.
Halloween Horror Nights, they underutilize the monsters.
Yes, they had this monster cafe I went into once, and that's about it. That's really all I really saw. And I knew they used to have like a makeup thing, or they make up like a monster. I don't think that's around anymore. But bear in mind, it's been a while, so even if it wasn't there when they've probably gotten rid of it now because they're getting rid of all the classic Universal things at this point. So this would be one that this would be a
Except
welcome.
E.T., damn it.
Yeah, they better keep ET.
E.T.'s a survivor.
Yes. Anyway, So yes, this is a very solid concept to me, and I will hopefully. Here's the thing: optimistically, I'd love to say that it's plausible. Basically, if Universal, the whole of Universal, if they dive into kind of their film loving roots, this should happen, man. This really should happen. Why can't it happen?
So I'm curious, Dragon. You are not enough of a fan of Toon Lagoon to want to save Toon Lagoon.
I gotta tell you, I've been to Toon Lagoon, and I gotta tell you, I think it's kind of in need of an upgrade like this. I really do.
Okay, okay.
Here,
I like the aesthetic of Toon Lagoon. I love all the comic book panels all over the place. I love the how colorful Dudley Do Right is. I feel like Dudley Do Right has that great photo op on the bridge where you're overlooking the drop. But I mean, I can see what you're talking about. Like, I haven't been on Popeyes, so I don't necessarily know how well Popeye's holding up. I thought Dudley Do Right was fantastic, though. That's the thing. Dudley Do Right is not a ride I would necessarily want to see replaced. Like, that'd be a hard thing to get rid of for me.
well, like I'm not like saying like tear it down. I'm just saying like I just I wasn't. It felt like they were rides with just like a theme to them. They didn't really feel like I'm going to rephrase it. It felt like they were just they wanted to do these rides and they had to like paint something over those rides, and that's really what it feels. At least in my experience, it's kind of what it felt like when I went down there. I mean, Deli Do Right had moments. I'll give you that. Deli Do Right had it had like a fun. It was fun. It had a fun construction on the inside how that ride worked out. But I think everything else though just kind of feels, especially the cafe, it just feels like okay, hey, let's just paint comic strips and everything. Just kind of go cartoony with things, but it didn't really feel like it was basking it or it was like doing it because it wanted to. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. And you're absolutely right that this new land would give much more cohesion to the overall area.
So what I really love about this course, it looks like we're reviving the Beetlejuice Graveyard Review, which sounds kind of fun.
Uh-huh.
Of course, me, I love me some Frankenstein. Basically, this lab walkthrough sounds amazing. It sounds like there's a good command over how they're reinventing the spaces, like with the Creature of the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, that's another thing that really struck me was the use of space. Absolutely.
I mean, the Dracula ride does sound ambitious, but I mean, it sounds ambitious, but I like it.
Hmm.
The Wolfman, the Wolfman thing sounds kind of fun. I wish that a little bit more could have been done with the Wolfman, but hey, he's there, so it's like kind of a food spot. That's not bad.
Hmm.
Let's see. One last thing though, I got to tell you that the gift shop, either I missed something or the gift shop's kind of weak sauce. Like we need to theme that to like the Mummy or something. Like theme it to the Mummy or maybe Hitchcock or something. Like theme it to some horror.
Oh, I like the Hitchcock gift shop
If
idea.
I can pick,
That's good.
that's the thing. If I could pick, I'd pick Hitchcock. But I mean, if we
Uh-huh.
want to theme it to a mon, because I mean, technically, they tried Hitchcock in the universe. I'd say I want. Here's the thing: they always felt unfair because there used to be this great Hitchcock attraction on the Universal side of things, and then they changed it into something. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what they changed.
Hmm.
It was like they kept changing that attraction to like an interim thing. It used to be the same about Hitchcock as a director, as a filmmaker. I think the Funk Land might have done an episode on it. I think.
Yeah, I
And
know what you're talking about. Yeah.
it was great. Anyway, the point is, it'd be great to kind of undo. We're going to undo what was done to Beetlejuice Graveyard Review. Let's do that with Hitchcock. If anyone deserves it, we got to pay tribute to Hitchcock, and that'd be Universal making amends for what they've done in the past with kind of all the things that they've gotten rid of. And if they're bringing back Kong, let's bring back Hitchcock.
All right.
But I mean, like, if you want to like theme like a gift shop to like treasures and I'm saying treasures. Like I think they need like some sort of thing with treasure. Like the Mummy makes sense for that, like Egyptian treasures and stuff. I don't know, scarabs. I don't know. You could at least theme it if you did something like the Mummy. I don't know.
Mhm. I think maybe the reason why they shied away from using the Mummy is that the Mummy already has a ride in the other park. Granted, I know that's Brendan Fraser Mummy, but I'm just saying maybe they
I'm talking
just
about the
didn't
Mummy
want
who matters, Tiki.
to. Oh, come on! I really like those Brendan Fraser movies, the first two at least.
I'm talking Karloff here, buddy boy. Come on, Karloff.
Yeah, the Mummy is basically Dracula with it's like less interesting Dracula. I'm not a big Mummy fan,
Well,
honestly.
neither am I. I'm just saying. I think Karloff versus I'm specifically the Mummy they did in that movie versus not. Anyway, my point is, I'll say this though again. I would love to see the Invisible Man, but I can see that one might not make for the most interesting. I love the Invisible Man so much. Claude Rains is the Invisible Man. The Claude Rains Invisible Man is the inspiration for Mark Hamill's Joker. Did I ever tell you that?
No, no. All I knew about the Joker was that the man who laughs was the
It was a combination of visually, it's Man Who Laughs. I'm saying that's
uh
where the character came from. The character came from Man Who Laughs. Mark Hamill based it on Blue Meanies from the Blue Meanies from Yellow Submarine for like the voice. Well, basically the voice was two parts. It was Blue Meanie for the high parts, and it was Claude Rains for the whole, like, basically how Joker expresses his madness. They called me mad, basically like the way it kind of amps up like the Invisible Man who goes crazy in that movie. So.
All right. Okay, so moving on to the last one, we have Action Park Russia. Da 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 da. Action Park, St. Petersburg, to be more specific. Now, Dragon, did you go back and watch the Defunct Land episode on Action Park?
Of course I did.
Good boy. And what did you think of this project overall?
I gotta tell you, Tiki, I really feel like I missed something on this one. I read through it. There's something I don't know. I just didn't get this one. I really didn't. I feel it read to me as I think Snoopy was doing like an inside joke that I don't. I think he went too meta with like the whole the what if Russia thing. I think he kind of went weirdly political with it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think Russia was the best choice for this either. I agree with you there. The Russia thing kind of confused me.
It's not even the Russia choice. It's just I think it's just very simply it's this form. And I could be completely wrong. You can correct me if I'm wrong here. I could have just completely misread this, but the way this really came off to me is that it felt like a joke pitch. And I don't mean that in like it was a poorly executed. I mean that it felt like he got caught up in the meta narrative and he just kind of he made fun of the infamy of Action Park for a whole pitch, which I felt didn't feel like an actual pitch.
Honestly, I feel like you are right. It was kind of very much a tongue-in-cheek pitch is what I would use to describe it.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, though, Dragon, in the way that you're kind of insinuating, because I feel like that kind of shows a level of creativity on Snoopy's part where, you see, one of the things I kind of look for, and of course this is just you not knowing the minutia of the game, of course, but one of the things I actually look for, Dragon, is projects that kind of push the mold and kind of like, something that's more than just text and pictures on a screen. And so I will agree with you, Dragon. I don't think this is as strong as a meta narrative as Snoopy laid out for his Madness Mountain project. I think that meta narrative made a lot more sense. But I do appreciate the fact that he tried and that he, it is kind of one of Snoopy's trademarks to kind of do this kind of stuff, do the meta narrative stuff. That is kind of one of the tricks in his wheelhouse. So it very much does land in his style. But I do agree, Dragon. It's funny that you bring up the in-joke thing, because I know Snoopy very well, and I feel like I'm a part of like a ton of his in-jokes. Speaking of which, on this picture, I just want to point out that Trix ice cream, Dragon, the Trix popsicles. I remember having those as a little kid, and they were fucking delicious, and I wish they would bring them back. And me and Snoopy actually used to talk about the Trix popsicles on a forum like way, way, way before WDWMagic. So that's what I'm saying. That's how in-jokey and far back Snoopy and I go. And yet I don't really know the in-joke that he's talking about here.
I mean, here's what it read. I mean, here's my problem with it. I'm going to cite Brooklyn Nine-Nine here as kind of like a great example. It's a weird comparison, but follow me on this. I always say Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's a show that works so well because you can be silly, you can be funny, yet they're good detectives. They know exactly what they're doing. It's a competent show, but they can afford to be silly and ridiculous and hysterical. They're not just being goofy. And I feel here, I'm seeing the jokes, and I get the joke. Okay, Action Park Brand is making basically pitching rides that would still be just to be faithful to Action Park would be very ridiculously irresponsible.
But what I like about this, though, is that it does kind of like it still rides that are irresponsible, but at the same time, it's like there's an air of legitimacy to them. Like I feel like I like the mix of like classic action park stuff, like the loop de loop water slide and the alpine slide, mixed with stuff like this. Mixed with the discus, which is the discus is actually something that's a realistic, like that's something that's in theme parks right now. Dragon, you can totally install a discus.
Sure, I imagine have like a
Log flumes. Vertical log flumes have also been done before. There was one at Knott's Berry Farm for a while.
Yeah, but again, Tiki, it feels. I wanted like either like a just kidding or like after he made that joke, I wanted like to explain that okay, but no, seriously, this thing would actually it would work, or it would would basically not be. I don't know. I feel I didn't get any other details aside from this and then joke, this and then joke. It's like this again. It's like he's pitching like, hey, we'd have this ride, but I'm not. What exactly is that ride? Why is that ride cool? Like I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not getting the sell at all. I'm just getting the spin, and I need both.
All right. I mean, I feel what you're saying, Dragon. I just like, to me, I very much think that this project kind of hit a sweet spot for me of like, I don't think it's as good as the Mountain of Madness project. I really don't. I feel like out of those two, Project 3 was definitely superior to Project 4 for Snoopy. But I mean, I do think that this is a really good mix of, classic action park stuff and new age stuff that, while ridiculous and while a little bit over the top, might not be as over the top as something like the original action park concepts, and might be something that might actually work. So at the end of the day, Dragon, I feel like it is a very well executed idea. I just think that the plausibility was a hard thing for you to wrap your mind around, right?
Well, I gotta tell you, I'm just gonna have to. Yeah, I'm gonna agree to disagree with you. It's your own thing. You make your own judgments on this one. I fundamentally disagree with a lot of this. I feel like he's. I know what a red has to me. Even looking beyond what a red is, I'm not seeing like an actual like proposition for a park here. I'm just seeing like it's like, hey, what if it sounds like again, it's an extrapolate. It's like a what if joke about Action Park. If it came back, we do all this stuff, and it'd still be dangerous. And it's like, well, then what's the point? If no one would want to go on this thing, you risk innocent lives in doing this. And towards the end, I mean, it just feels like again, I know what this is not, and I assume because again, you're voucher big guy here. I assume this is not the case. It read to me as he kind of gave up towards the end, which I felt like don't give up towards the end, but he's going for a joke though. That's why he's not actually giving up, but it just feels like he committed to the wrong thing on this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just my 2 cents on it. So again, folks, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not in the trenches on this one. So
Okay, Dragon, let's kind of turn things around to the positive side of things, to air things out, to end things out. Overall, how do you did you enjoy your time doing these? Did you get more enjoyment out of it than you got like kind of head scratching confusion?
I much preferred the Del Toro challenge. I greatly liked the Universal thing. Also was great. Just everything else was just kind of I don't know. It was head scratching. That's the best way to put it. It's just like look, I don't want nothing. I'm not taking away from Space Mountain's thing with the Small World challenge. I'm not. I'm not saying everything else was bad. I'm just saying like, I got a bigger kick out of Del Toro.
And of course, Del Toro is way more your wheelhouse, whereas It's Not Such a Small World, after all, kind of opened it up to like any kind of theme, so we got a lot more variety. But then again, like we got stuff like Harry Potter where you're just not really into it and invested into it at all. So
yes, I'm just saying, I had more to cling on to with Del Toro, and the other thing was just again there were some things that did impress me in the other challenge, but I just I had a lot more to like. I was like, yes, I recognize that. It feels so accurate to Del Toro, and what you're going for there. Yeah.
All right. Well, Dragon, thanks for joining me. I know that it's been kind of a long wait, folks, with the podcasts. Of course, Project 5 is due on Sunday. I can't wait to see that. And the meantime, folks, see you guys later and keep on creating. Yeah.